still a fun movie.
Yeah.
It's still fun, but the music occasionally takes me out of these scenes.
And I gotta tell you, the one thing I appreciate most about this movie is they went to the races. So there's scenes in this movie where Stallone is pushing Burt Reynolds in Burt Reynolds' wheelchair, and those people walking by are just staring at them. That's because they're at actual races. And so they're walking around, and
they're Burt Reynolds and Sly.
Yeah, and there are people staring at them. And you'll see a scene where the AD, the assistant director, grabs two women by, like, puts his arms around them and walks them out of the frame because they are walking perfectly along with them, staring at them. And you will see, they had like 14 minutes before a race, and they had to knock out all the dialogue scenes. So it was unprecedented in the access they were able to get with them. Also, like what Renny said, and Rush had such a low budget, such a, $35 million budget, that you couldn't see a lot of the behind the scenes of how the cars work. In this one, he made sure to show you that each car has 16 tires per race. You see the tires. You see the trailers. Remember when Til Schweiger breaks up with Sophia? Bo breaks up with Sophia, they're in their personal trailer. Like, they showed every aspect of this racing, and they made it seem huge. And it's not a fault of Rush because it had a micro budget. I mean, 35 million's tiny compared to this, but I liked how they made this sport seem epic and driven. I dug that.
Well, that comes back to our discussions of Rush, because I remember my feeling of Rush is that even though I found the movie emotionally exhilarating, it wasn't ever emotionally exhilarating for the racing scenes for me. It was because of what I knew the character cultivated urgency in their interpersonal dynamic. What was happening on screen? There was very little real racing on screen, whereas this movie, it's like Ron Howard wanted to take us on the journey of these two racers, Lauda and Hunt. I think Renny Harlin was just whatever characters happen to be in the script is fine, but he wanted to take you on the journey through Formula One or Indy cars, and he wanted to give you a taste of what that was. And I think he succeeded, right?
Oh, yeah.
But just totally different. It's almost like the macro and the micro approach, right? It's like Renny was taking the macro approach and Ron Howard was taking the micro approach. Yeah. Even though Ron Howard made the bigger movie about the bigger characters, he took the micro. Let's just look really closely at these characters' lives in this year and a half.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's funny. Wow. But I guess do you think Renny succeeded with this film, Renny Harlin?
Okay, in 2001, I don't care how much money it did or didn't make, all right? I think that Indian Formula One car kind of stuff in the United States is a tough thing to make a boatload of money on, especially in 2001.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what this was. Not that I was ever into any kind of car racing, but when this movie came out, before the internet's all over the place, before you just, know everything from your Facebook feed, what your friends are into because it's in their Facebook feed, I didn't know that Formula One existed, really. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know the difference. So to me, this was just that's right. I've seen this on TV once. It's not NASCAR, right? So I think that might have been the thing working against him most, because this had such a cool cast, a beautiful movie. It's as colorful as a Michael Bay movie, just without all the explosions, just all the reds and blues and sunlight everywhere, right?
And the crowds.
And a super fun soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
Right? At the time. And it's still energetic, but it just doesn't hit the same.
They're dropping some Fatboy Slim in 2001.
Say hallelujah.
Yeah. And then what right here, right now. I was listening to this just kind of. I got brought back to those years where I had my CD player in my V4 cylinder Dodge Shadow convertible blaring out, and when I hit the gas too hard, my CD player flew out because I traded a tennis racket because I got new tennis rackets. I traded a Gamma tennis racket for a CD player, and I took my radio out, installed the CD player, but it's too small, so I wedged it into my car, and whenever I hit the gas, it would fly out. But I had those CDs in when I did that. But this movie, man, I watched it. And
what do you think? What do you feel about Renny's success since you brought it up?
All right, so in 2001, I watched this movie and I really dug it. I don't know how I could explain why I dug it, but I think just the music. I thought Til Schweiger was really cool. I don't know what it was in my head, but I just kind of thought there's really no villain in this movie. There's a slimy brother, but there's no, like in Rush, there's no villain. And I just kind of thought, like, I still remember this to this day. I was talking to my brother Eric, and he was like, yeah, there's a really cool German dude in here, and he has this relationship where he has a lot of stress on him, so he breaks up with his long-term fiance. He realizes he made a mistake, but she's kind of hanging out with this other guy, but then they're kind of like, yeah, we need to get back together, and at the end they're all kind of cool. I was like, what? What was that? I don't even know when do movies do that? And that actually this is based on a true story about Gina Gershon in F1. But I remember him telling me about it, and I just kind of thought, oh, that's really neat. That'd be kind of cool to watch, and I dug it. I liked just the big crowds. I mean, it was Fast and Furious before Fast and the Furious. Like, we were watching this in 2001. We're 18. There's a lot of gratuitous, Hawaiian Tropic Lady shots in this. There's a lot of, like, I don't know. So I thought it was pretty cool. I didn't look at it anything beyond the surface. But one thing, though, I think you're right. It's about racing. The plot is very MTV, and Stallone was coming off of, listen to this run, The Specialist, Judge Dredd, Assassins, Daylight, Copland, which was good but not a massive success, Get Carter, and then Driven. So his career was kind of wasn't too good at the time. He hadn't had a hit in a while. And then also they cast Kip Pardue 3 days before this movie. No one really knew about him at the time. Till Schweiger was a massive German celebrity. And that one scene where he gets to speak German with that was a German pop star that was randomly on set. He was really comfortable in that scene. When she's like, I can kiss you, he's like, no, you lose. He was very comfortable. So there was no one bringing this movie into it. There were no explosions. There was no quarter-mile races. Fast and the Furious took up the cool quotient. This movie just didn't have a lot going for it when it hit the theaters. So, I mean, the fact that it made $40 million is pretty good. Would you say?
I just think the cast drew me in. I mean, of course, in high school, I saw Showgirls. So, like, Gina Gershon was a draw. Like, and she's attractive to the younger and the older generation at the time.
Did you see the dog chow on one of the cars? That was like an in-joke towards Showgirls where she said she ate dog chow.
Oh, no, I didn't get that. Yeah. But, like, Estella Warren.
She's in a different movie altogether, Gershon. Everyone else is kind of friendly, but she's up to 11 in this movie.
Yeah, she is. And I liked it, though. I enjoyed disliking her character.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And she did a great job with it, all the catty stuff, even with Luke in the bathroom and how she dug into her ex-husband. But
a lot of scenes were cut with her, and Stallone was very articulate about their relationship.
I gotta see all this.
Because, and then, remember, he was like hooked on drugs and partying. And he was a mess when he met her, and they were both messes, and they were just toxic for each other. So the bitterness, you don't see it in the theatrical cut, but if it would have been longer, Stallone would have shared more of, listen, I was a maniac. We were together, we weren't good for each other, I was in a terrible place, I kind of burned those bridges. So it gives her more humanity than it does in the theatrical cut.
Yeah, I remember wondering where all this vitriol was coming from.
Yeah.
Other than what I would call standard, almost like the toxic masculine view of the ex-wife kind of thing.
Yeah.
When Memo, her new husband, and Sly's Joe Tanto's old kind of racing partner is now her husband, and he's all nice about it. So it's like it was a weird dynamic, but I just love the way that she rolled into that character, though. She plays the mean roles so well.
Oh, she got it. She had fun with it. She knew what she was hired for, and she did it well. Absolutely. And I felt bad for Estella Warren in this movie. She hadn't done many films. You want to hear something interesting? So that scene where the breakup scene between her and Bo, she couldn't bring it, and so they spent most of the day just waiting for her to get tears because she was a brand new actress. And so Renny Harlin said, I have never done this before, and I don't want to do this again. But I just chastised her on the set in front of everybody, and I made her cry.
Wow.
And then they did the scenes, and she nailed it. And later on, she came up to him and said, thank you for doing that. I was really embarrassed that I couldn't hit it. And I know at first I hated you, but then I started crying, and I kind of guessed I knew what you were doing. But Harlan's like, yeah, I'd never want to ever do that again on set. But the poor guy went into her and made her cry to get that performance.
Was her only big movie before this Planet of the Apes, or was that after this?
Well, let me see.
Mark Wahlberg, Planet of the Apes.
Well, they were both 2001, so that came out in the summer.
Same time.
Yeah, so Planet of the Apes.
Same time frame, though. Okay.
Yeah, so that came out in the summer. Let's see. Driven came out 2001. What was the date for Driven when it came out? I just know it came out in 2001.
Are they both 2001 movies?
Yeah. Because I went on a road trip around Florida after graduating college, and my buddy and I ran out of money, and somehow we had free tickets, so we went and watched Driven in a theater in 2001. So that came out in August, and so yeah, Planet of the Apes came out before that. So that was probably in June, July.
Okay, but they were really tightly released, yeah.
And I would say Driven probably was made first because Planet of the Apes had a ton of special effects, maybe?
I believe it.
But yeah, I mean, she wasn't bad. They were nominated for 7 Razzies, dude. These came out like a week apart from each other. So yeah, I mean, yeah, she got 7 Razzies this movie was nominated for. I don't see it being 7 Razzie bad, do you?
No, I don't. I liked it, especially at the time. I'm surprised. I don't think that anything was bad about it. Let me make that really clear. It hasn't aged very gracefully, again, largely by virtue of the soundtrack. But I don't think anything is bad about this. It might be missing a lot of good things I would expect a movie like this to have. But I don't think it specifically has bad qualities.
A lot of articles that I read, like Joe Blow did a fun breakdown of this, and a lot of movies they're like, yeah, it's terrible, but we like watching it. So I'm like, wait, what does that mean? So it seems like the cool thing to say that you hate it. However, everyone talks about they like watching it, which is weird.
I don't know. I think that a lot of Razzies for this seems unfair.
Yeah, and also he had a ton of heat. He had a ton of bad buzz at the time, so I think he wasn't helped by this, and people were just dogpiling with this movie. But you know what I liked most about it is you have Joe Tanto, old school guy, nothing but talent, but he threw it all away. Then you have Jimmy Bly, this young kid that was basically racing since he was a child, no social life, no, overbearing brother. They just want him in the limelight. He just wants to look at computers all day and study the track and be left alone. And then you have Til Schweiger, who is kind of the Daniel Bruhl of the bunch. He's the one that runs all day. He sprints. He is blunt. One's Austrian, one's German, but he's very athletic. He takes the sport very seriously. He wants to dominate. So it's 3 totally different drivers interacting. Even Memo is number 4. There's 4 totally different kinds of drivers interacting, and I like that. I like that aspect. Young meets old.
So bear with me here. Now, I can totally see a writer coming up with this dynamic organically on their own with no exposure, knowing anything about racing history. But because I happen to have seen Rush and Ford v Ferrari, do you think that historically there was influence for Joe Tanto and Jimmy Bly for Ford v Ferrari, where Joe Tanto is almost like the Shelby character?
Are you saying that Ford vs. Ferrari drew inspiration from Driven?
No. Driven drew inspiration from those historical people.
My bad, dude. I had a brain fart there.
But so like Shelby mentoring his new driver, right, on the circuit, like that could have been them. Whereas Bo Brandenburg and Jimmy Bly are almost like the Niki Lauda and James Hunt. Because Jimmy Bly is living wild. He's hitting the clubs. He's kind of reckless. He's more I like her driven.
Right? He's super bookish and computery, right?
I mean, he's just studying, though. It's almost just like practicing your turns.
Yeah.
I found myself like drawing, and maybe it's just because I've seen these movies both recently, and these are my only connection to, the racing universe. Mm-hmm. And so I'm drawing parallels with when it's easy to find a needle in a haystack when I don't have a lot of hay of experience in these movies. But I found that both of those things had a lot of parallels, but maybe that's more incidental.
I mean, if you see it, you see it. I guess I would go with more incidental because I just didn't read Kit Pardue as a James Hunt type guy. He seems very, he just almost doesn't want to, like, I feel like James Hunt